Yo, it's your boy Logos, and I found this video that I think is worth having a conversation about, especially considering current events. I think many Gen Zers, including myself, agree with the sentiment that we don't want war and we're very untrusting of the government. Especially myself, I've been watching people like Alex Jones and conspiracy theorists since middle school and high school, so I'm very untrustworthy of the government, a politician, or any president. It's very hard for me to believe that they have my best interests in mind when they're constantly showing the opposite. Even with that being said, I still love America because of the principles and the ideals, not necessarily because of the people or the people running it in this term, the next term, or the last term. That's how I feel about it. Regardless, I want to bring in my historical knowledge and my perspective on it, see if I can at least bring something worthwhile to the conversation. So let's get into it.
You know, they say every couple of generations, one generation is bound to experience the most life-changing events in history. And so far, it's looking like Gen Z is fitting the boot. Okay, maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but can you blame me after all the things we've had? Most of us were born around the time or after one of the most devastating terror attacks in modern times happened. We saw our parents trying to keep their sanity during the 2008 financial crisis. As soon as we stepped out into the real world as adults, everything decided to shut down because of COVID in 2020. We've been having drills since we were 5 at school in case a lunatic comes in and mows the whole school down. And now to add the cherry on top, we may be running back to draft and being put on the war field.
I think COVID really did mess a lot of people up, but even younger than Gen Zers. Well, I guess if it goes through the 2010s, then yeah, then Gen Zers in the later portion really got screwed over with COVID in terms of schooling, social interaction, and just I think overall COVID really dissuaded a lot of the populace into trusting the government and quote unquote experts. Regardless of how you feel about COVID, I think a lot of people didn't appreciate the lack of consistency and I would say unfairness. Certain politicians, certain people in power who having parties, doing large gatherings, getting their hair done, getting caught going on doing this stuff, while we, the average everyday citizen, couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't open our business. We couldn't go to work. We had to stay inside. Me personally, I didn't give a shit. If I wanted to go outside, I went outside. I wasn't concerned about COVID. I was healthy. I was in good shape. I exercised every day, so it was no big deal to me. For me, it was just like a common cold, a really bad flu. And that's how I felt when I actually got it. So COVID, in my perspective, in my opinion, it did a lot more damage in terms of the economy and the people than it should have. But that's just my perspective. Of course, the elderly and the vulnerable population with health conditions, I'm not saying screw them and they don't matter, but I'm still saying we could have found the balance.
Excuse me, I meant you guys may be running back the draft and on the war field. I just found out I'm highly on the spectrum, so unfortunately that means I can't qualify. But good luck, future soldiers. I'll give y'all each a high five and you can have fun on the battlefield. It's crazy how Gen Z is kind of running back what millennials had. Because millennials had a war growing up with a terrible economy and had to worry about if they could even afford a house. But man, at least they had good music coming out. What the do we have for these turmoil times, Lil Mabu? I don't think I really have to explain too much what's going on. If you don't keep up with the news, you've probably seen the memes already about hitting 360 no scopes on the battlefield. But
But that's the thing. We've been having these memes and freakouts for like 5 times over the past 5 or 3 years. Every time you turn around, there's like a World War III hashtag trending. So it's not like, I'm not saying not take it seriously, but also at the same time, a lot of people on social media, they like to hype this stuff up, just like the news, so they can get people fearful, get clicks, get interactions, and then they can make money off of it. That's what a lot of people do, whether it's rage bait or clickbait. Mass media like CNN, Fox News do it. Average people on Twitter do it too, because they have a following. If you're a largely known political activist, you're going to pick a side most times, and then that side you're going to make it look very extreme, so you can get more people on your side to be more emotive or emotional, and then they'll act down the way that you want. Of course, not every single person does that, but I see it a lot. And at least me personally, I try not to get moved by that too much. Maybe because I like history, I learn about history and I see patterns, but either way, it happens often.
United States of America officially got involved with the Israel and Iran conflict and decided to drop 3 bombs on what they say is their nuclear sites. But of course, that's just a theory. A game theory. Alright, I'm sorry. I feel like I need to take these matters more serious. Now, I'm not gonna say too much of my personal opinion on it and break this down.
I'm sorry I'm paused so much. I ain't realized until the past few years how much I really love history and military stuff when I was young. These bombers was so fucking cool to me growing up. I used to watch like the military channel, like I think channel 140 something, 150 something, I think 155 or 154. And I would see like certain shows showing these bombers and shit. And at first, when I first saw these bombers, these B-2 bombers, I thought they were like alien spaceships because it looked so sleek. It looked alien. It didn't look human. But of course, now we're actually seeing it in battle 20 years later. Sorry, it's kind of cool to me. It's not cool that people are being bombed and there's war. I don't want war. But if we're going to spend all this fucking money for these machines of war, and we gotta use them, unfortunately, I can't deny it looks cool seeing this thing actually in the sky. Same with stuff like F-22. Like, I don't want to see that in combat. If that does end up being in combat, that's going to be insane to watch. There's a reason why we don't sell those planes to other people or other countries.
Like it's a 5-hour political podcast. I usually say and talk about things more on stream, so definitely go follow me on there in the second channel. But it's not surprising that everyone is scared online and doesn't know what's gonna happen. You know, in the past, you usually didn't have a president tweeting that they bombed a country, then posting a low PNG photo of the American flag right after. This is definitely the worst time to be the ripe age of 18 to 25 because we going first if the draft happens. Unfortunately, high school class of 2025, you only got a couple of seconds of freedom before you were cooked. I've been thinking to myself for a while, in a hypothetical unlikely scenario of them actually doing a draft, the government doesn't realize that
it would not work with Gen Z.
Gen Z has got to be the worst generation for them to try and get on the war train with them.
It depends. I've watched a lot of army military boot camps. There are a lot of 18-year-olds, so a lot of young guys, young women that love being in the army. They're loving what they're doing. Of course, you have some bullshit in the army, like it's been about, I think, like the big green dick or some shit that fucks you over in the army or in the Marines. There are still BS you have to deal with because of their hierarchy and certain stuff like that in politics. But there are still people that enter the military that love it. You could say it's not as much as it was before. I would blame the media and the government itself and other things, but people still love their country. Still people sign up because they love it. And of course, people still sign up for the benefits. After 9/11, the country came together. There was no more division. I don't want another 9/11 or something on a similar scale just so we can come together. But I think if we had to go to war and we couldn't, and we didn't have an option because we was attacked, and it was truthfully attacked, like we know it's not like a false flag and stuff. There's like no debate on that. I think we would rally and go to war, and the people would support it. We might not want it because, you know, nuclear weapons and stuff like that, but I don't think we would just sit there and let us die with no retribution. And I don't think our president, any president, should or would either.
And this isn't even mentioning about all the femboys and furries we got. Not even talking about how half of us are either morbidly obese or twigs. One of the main reasons I think war wouldn't work with Gen Z is because the propaganda age of America is officially dead. And not just America, any country that has some form of free press is absolutely cooked. The reason why people...
Is propaganda dead, or did it just morph and change in such a way that is now attacking you or influencing you in a way that you don't realize? Who knows? Maybe they just adapted. Of course, I see more people like myself more disillusioned with the government. Also, a lot of people like myself, it's about the politicians. It's not about America itself, if you get what I mean.
People back then were so patriotic and would do anything to be in the army in war times. You had kids who were in high school lying about their age so they could serve in the army. It was because so many people trusted what the politicians said and how the media said things. Politicians were treated as saintly figures that would never do bad for the American people, because why would they? They sit on podiums and do cool speeches about us fighting for our democracy and...
Yes and no, because like I said, after 9/11, a lot of young men and a lot of young women went to war, went to Iraq and signed up because of what happened with the Twin Towers. and their belief that we was attacked by terrorism. Now, you, me, and almost everybody else can say that was whatever, a false flag, Bush did it, gas on melt steel beams, etc., etc. I recently watched like a documentary of Iraqi war veterans talking about their perspective of it 20 years after they left the war. And at least none of them that I've seen feel very positive about their experience in such a way like what they were there fighting for. They still love their buddies, they still love their friends and the relationships they had, but the purpose that they went there with, I don't think they feel the same about it as they do now.
Freedom. And now we look back at certain conflicts America got in and realize that there was no point in us being there. Like, almost nobody nowadays thinks the Vietnam War was something America needed to get involved in. And it's crazy how the #1 superpower for military in all things lost to that were setting up Looney Tune ad traps in the ground.
This... he called these Looney Tune traps. These are freaking stuff of nightmares. You're walking through a jungle where the foliage and the leaves and the branches and everything is so thick you can't see 20 feet in front of you unless there's like a meadow. And then probably on the other side of that meadow is the enemy that's going to be trying to shoot at you. And the last thing you want to do is step in anything that could possibly kill you or injure you, because transport and getting picked up in medevac is not always that easy, especially in the live combat zone. Plus, once again, when I was younger, I watched, I think it was The Art of War on the History Channel, and they had like a little Vietnam section talking about it. They would do these types of traps, and they would put nasty things like shit and poison and other stuff on the tips of these barbs. So not only were you stabbed, you were going to get infected, making the chance of your survival even worse. Not mention the fact that if one of your buddies is injured and wounded, that's one less gun out of your fight. That's one less man to help you, and you have to sacrifice maybe 1 or 2 men to get him out and to carry him to safety, leaving them vulnerable. In an ambush. He said, I get he's making jokes, and I'm not getting upset or anything, I just want to explain it. But the reason why we had such a tough time in Vietnam is because the Vietnamese fought the way you should have fought when you're a small army, a guerrilla army, fighting against a conventional army in the force. You don't have the firepower, the air power that they have. So of course you're going to hide on the ground, you're going to hit and run, you're going to attack their morale, because you can't fight them head on. You do ambushes. Napoleon got stuck in Spain because of this issue. This has gone on for thousands of years. It's not a new thing, but when you do it properly, you can really undermine the government or a stronger military force. Plus, when the enemy doesn't want to just indiscriminately bomb you and kill everybody, they can't just walk through a war zone as they see fit. They have to be careful.
Also, the Iraq War is universally seen as a dumb war that shouldn't have happened by people now. Like, even Trump and Obama agree on that. That's probably the only thing they agree on. The reasons why these work, though, is because it was so much easier to push propaganda in the past. Like, in the Vietnam War, they were playing TV ads saying this was all about freedom and nothing else. Taking ads out the newspaper saying the only way to be a man is by getting drafted to war. And
they tried to pull on the same things that got people into the Great War when they were trying to pull on the ancient or the Renaissance or like the 1800s era battlefields where people would walk in lines and it's always honorable and all this other stuff. But also at the same time, there was a Gulf of Tonkin incident where I think a ship of ours got blown up, and that was a false flag too. So that's another reason why people at first supported Vietnam. Then as it went on, people stopped supporting it, and then the veterans got treated like trash, which they didn't deserve.
At the time before social media, everyone basically believed it because that's all that was shown. There wasn't anyone with major platforms that would go against it because they would get censored, and everyone watched media through a few news channels which would all say the same thing. During the Iraq War though, that's when you first started seeing people actually start speaking up about things, saying, hey, maybe going into a country and murdering innocent civilians and committing war crimes isn't a good thing. Just maybe. But social media was still in its baby phases at the time it was going on, so there was still a lot of enthusiasm for it. But now with Gen Z, we grew up in the most free era of social media. No one would go because everyone would know it would be another lie that the government is doing. And the military's numbers have already been dropping more than ever. People have been making fun of it because they be trying to recruit soldiers anywhere they can now. They've been seen at anime cons. They got whole Twitch channels now. They even got them at NBA games now. I'm not gonna lie, if I'm watching my glorious king LeBron putting up 40 points and a military sergeant comes up to me like, "Hey son, this game sure is great, right? Have you ever thought of the game of fighting for your country?" Like, get the f out my face, bro. I'm watching LeBron. Even if they're
That's not how they do it. Turns out, like, oh yeah, I kind of mentioned it earlier. The propaganda has transformed and evolved in such a way you might not realize it or think about it once it hits you. Call of Duty, these military movies, certain ones, they get sponsorships and money from the US Army and military, and it makes logical sense. Someone like me who's been playing Call of Duty since he was, I shouldn't have, but 4 or 5 years old, I have memories playing Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty Big Red 1, Call of Duty 3, the World War II ones before middle school, and I love those games. And I was really close to entering the military, and I wanted to go into the Marines. So it works, it changes, it evolves. Just because it doesn't work on you doesn't mean it's not gonna work on somebody else. And the reason why it doesn't work on you doesn't mean the other person doesn't have that same reasoning. I come from a military family. I've always loved the military and history, so it's just like an easy match for me. Only reason I didn't is because my father, a military veteran who didn't want me to go. So it changes. It depends on the person. But there is an issue with recruitment because so many people are overweight, out of shape, etc., etc.
there was a chance it was true and we were rightfully defending ourselves from evil. The US government has lost so much trust in the public, no one would believe them. I don't know a single man I've asked in Gen Z that said they would actually go if they got drafted. Most would rather just take the prison time or fine than go. And looking at it in the long run, it's not even that bad. It's 5 years in prison max if you don't go. So it's either you get 5 years max in prison for not going and stay alive, or go and potentially get obliterated on the battlefield by a missile straight to the head. Hey, man.
Jesus. The vast majority of jobs in the military are not combat roles. We have 4 branches, and then you have many people supporting the people on the front line, whether it's transport, ammunition, communications, administration. So just because you enter in the military doesn't mean you're gonna go to war. Even if, depending on when you get enlisted or drafted, you might not even still see combat. Depending on if the war ends or there's a peace treaty, you might just end basic training and then the war is over. Lucky you. I don't know, man. Like if my close friends are going in, I'm gonna go in too because I'm not finna just not be there when their life is on the line. If you get what I'm saying. And I imagine there was a lot of young men who had that same idea too during World War II, World War I, and wars far beyond that. Sometimes it can be love of country. Sometimes it can be the love of the person that you've grown up with who need to or want to defend their country. It just depends.
Man, I don't know about y'all, but I'm throwing a party in that prison for every day we not in the warfield. I got a friend that served in the military for a couple of years, and even he said nowadays he'd rather take the prison time. Also, the younger generation has realized we don't want to fight a war because of a politician's beef. Like, why don't y'all fight it yourselves? Why I gotta grab the military equipment while you sit on a plane watching from above drinking champagne? They should host a boxing match every year for world leaders, and whoever wins, their country gets the most benefits for that year. Looking at our leader for now, though, yeah, we might be losing for the next couple of years of that.
But here's the thing. Well, it don't matter who your leader is. No leader in this world is beating Putin. He's a former KGB spy. He is legit. Like as legit as you can get. He is a killer. He is a certified killer. He ain't no person that he rolls up through the ranks, but he also killed people and through the spy agency before he got into politics. Nobody's gonna whoop his ass. If you do know somebody that can whoop his ass in the world that's a politician, let me know. And I would love to read their bio and their profile. But nobody's being Putin if we do that route. So let's just not do that route. We spend billions of dollars in the military. let's use the first and second largest navy, which we have, the United States, to fight a war if we needed to at the last option. Plus, here's the thing: when people usually go to war, especially in the old days, they didn't just have a beef with the politician; they wanted that land. Oh, okay. I'm sorry for pausing so much. War is nothing more than a continuation of policy. So if this leader wanted this land for whatever reason, because he wanted to grow economically, or there's resources or something, yeah, he gonna beat that politician ass, but he's still gonna send the military to get that land, enforce it, and make sure the people living there don't get in the way. And to move in his own people on that land where those people used to live at. So they can work their own farms, factories, or whatever industry he needed that land for. It's a bit more complicated than just politicians. Sometimes, most times, it's a bit more complicated than just politicians not liking each other. Especially consider politicians often change. Most of the world has democracies. So every 4 years, you mostly have somebody new.
Also, growing up in this age, we've gotten exposed to how badly these war injuries leave people. This right here might be the sole reason Gen Z would never join in. There's always a chance you could end up with one of those. People in war lose body parts I didn't even know was possible to lose. The day I'm at war and they try to obliterate my meat, the whole place is getting torn down. They should have tried to stop those images from coming out, because who the hell would want to potentially get involved in a war after seeing pictures like that? And it's crazy because it could happen at any moment to you on the warfield. One day you're chilling in the breezy weather of Iraq in 115-degree weather. You're vibing, then you look to the right and see a man with 20 cc's of C4 strapped to his chest running to you at Usain Bolt speed. And now you end up looking like Two-Face back at home. I'm not sitting here and saying all of America's wars were unjustified though. Like, I always appreciate the veterans out there who fought, because most of the time, even if the war ended up being unjustified, a lot joined to fight for justified reasons at what they were told and then felt bad when they realized it was a lie. And also for World War II, America was justified in a lot, like, let's be real, mainly making sure Adolf didn't end up owning the world. But like I said, no matter—
Well, we wanted to get in the war, but we couldn't because the American public didn't want to get involved. Then Japan bombed us. And then for some dumbass reason, from his perspective, from the Axis perspective, for some dumbass reason, Adolf declares war on the United States. And so Churchill is like, well, shit, that's what I needed, but thank you. I didn't expect it'll be that easy. And then now you have the biggest country in the world fighting on your side. Hitler declared war on us. We didn't declare war on Hitler. Like, don't forget that. It's important to know that. It's another example that a reason why we don't live in the world of Nazi Germany in power is also because of Nazi Germany's incompetence and Hitler's stupidity and insanity. I could go on about that for like 10 minutes, so I'll just get back to the video.
No matter how justified a conflict may be, the trust is gone from the public. It'll take a real hard campaign to have the youth agree the government is totally not lying in what they're saying. And the president we have now is totally not a liar, right?
One thing I can promise you this: I will always tell you the truth.
He don't even believe that himself. Do you see his face? He was probably holding back a laugh so hard in his mind. That's the thing that's most important in a war. Having a person that the younger generation wholeheartedly trusts. It's a reason why a lot of dictatorships completely ban social media, because they can fully propaganda the younger generation to look up to the leader, and they're all gonna believe in them. Even having someone that they trust is hard, but having someone that the younger generation doesn't trust—
they also don't do it because they don't want to see the lifestyle that we live in the West. Shocking. I know a lot of people in the West hates the West for some dumbass reason, but a lot of people who don't live in the West wish they could live here because of comforts and freedom and safety that they don't have in their own home or in their own country. Freedom to say fuck the president. This thing he just did with Trump and stuff and call him a liar, that could get you sitting in jail or in prison in certain other countries like maybe China or Russia. That's the good thing about being in America. That's why I love America. That's why I will fight and defend America, because of those principles and ideals. I can have freedom of speech. I can defend myself with a gun. This is stuff that I support about America, and I don't support the politicians.
Yeah, it's gonna be damn near impossible for the government to try to get us on the war train with that. No matter your view on Trump, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that most of Gen Z does not have a good view on him. You take a room of 10 of us, and I would say at least 8 people are gonna say they don't like him. And look, like
I don't know, because he did better in this past election with like college age black men and stuff like that. So I would say probably like 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10. But also I think certain people would be too bitch made to say they like Trump because everybody else around them getting upset. So I wouldn't even take those polls seriously unless they're anonymous. Regardless, he's gonna be gone eventually. Like, the Democratic Party needs to change their policy, their campaign, or their goals or objectives so they can have something after Trump. Because at this rate, it looked like JD Vance gonna be the next president. And I don't know who they're gonna roll out to oppose him. And if they're gonna roll out Newsom, holy shit. Get ready for 20 more years of conservatism. And it'll be your fault. If you defend them, it'll be your fault.
I've said in the past, I'm not even one of those that's a Trump hater 24/7 and spends all day writing hate articles on him. But if you truly think the younger generation would fully be behind him declaring a war on another country, you're delusional. Bro, we just had protests around the whole country against what he's doing. And because he's commander-in-chief and can set whatever—
Wait. I'm sorry. Those protests is a very small percentage of the overall population. Let's not just act like that Trump don't have supporters and don't have military-aged men who voted for him that would enter the military if they agree with his war or his policy. Just because certain Gen Zers within our orbit or your orbit or his orbit wouldn't support Trump in the war doesn't mean others will or won't. I think there are more people than he realized in our age group who would go to war if they thought it was justified and they believed Trump was in line, or they just believed that we was attacked and we need to pay them back for that. That's what I think.
war policies he wants, I would not trust what the this would implement. Like, what if he implements a policy where if your meat is smallest, you gotta be the first to go because you probably can't repopulate the population after it drops from all the casualties? All of us would be like, I don't know if I can trust the man leading the war that says this on stage.
Because they asked me what I do, and I said, I'm gonna bomb the out of them.
Imagine he forgot there was a couple.
Okay. Here's another thing. When Trump had that press conference a few days ago, when he was pissed off at Iran and Israel, and he said they don't know what the fuck they're doing, I think that made a bit more people like Trump because he didn't sugarcoat anything. He didn't make excuses for Israel or Iran, especially Israel. He said both of them fucking up. They don't know what the fuck they're doing, and they're pissing me off. And people was finally happy to see him not be soft, not be, I don't know, political. Even though people don't think he's very political, I think people liked him more because of that. Certain people really do like Trump. Obviously, he won the election. So if a war really popped off and we felt it was justified, I think there will be people that will go to the draft for different reasons.
The soldiers on the warfield and threw one right in the middle of the fight. Also, another reason why the younger generation wouldn't be motivated to join in is because we really got nothing to look forward to and have no hope for an American dream. Our economy's still from COVID and inflation is still going on. No one can get a job on the mainland already, and most of Gen Z ain't gonna get a house in their lifetime. At least back then, when you fought a war, you had those things to look forward to. You came back and could work a shift as a cashier and buy a house in 2 years. Now,
that's not true. At the time of World War II, we were still coming off of the Great Depression, which is much worse than whatever shit you're going through right now. Where you had people living on the street, there was no work, people was like offing themselves because they lost their life savings. Like, even the 2008 housing crisis, as horrible and messed up as that was, check out the movie The Big Short if you want to know more about it. As bad as that was, that still wasn't as bad as the Great Depression. And people still went off to war in World War II, the most deadly war in human history. So, I think people will still go to war if they felt it was necessary. And back then, people didn't know that they were going to come back to America being on top. There was no way for them to see in the future and know we was going to have the baby boom, credit, we'll be the lone superpower. Nobody knew that stuff. They just went off to war because they felt it was defending their country and it was the right thing to do. And lo and behold, they made a life after that, some way, somehow.
Nowadays, instead of that, you're gonna come back and have no work available to you, probably still be living with your parents. All the femcells on Twitter and TikTok are gonna be laughing at the men dying on the warfield. And don't count on the government to help you either after. It's so sad to me that there's people out there that served the country and helped keep it alive, only for them to end up homeless with no help from the government. In what world should homeless veterans even be a thing, bro? We spend $880 billion on the military a year. Everyone who served in war should be eating good and kicking back for the rest of their lives. They did something that none of us wanted to do, and the politicians, and then got the end of the stick. If I was them, I would take back all of my service and stay my ass on the mainland. The government has tried to right those wrongs and make better benefits for people, but you still end up with people who got left behind and have nothing after. The only reason why I would even join, to be honest, is the benefits. I just have to sit there and pray that a war doesn't actually happen. Because for real, I don't really want the free insurance and vacation. The warfield is a different conversation. I'm gonna have to take my prison time for that game. Anyways, that's gonna be it. For anyone in Gen Z.
Oh, but also there are other benefits too. Of course, you get the medical and everything else in a check if you stay for a certain amount of time every day. Not every day, I'm sorry. Every month from the military or the government if you do amount of time in the military. But also, if you have certain aspirations, if you want to work in STEM, technology, engineering, you can get certain jobs to give your experience and take care of your schooling. You also get a security clearance too because of your experience in the military, which will help you get private jobs in the private sector or in the government after you retire. So you can at least have a plan so you can get on your feet and make the civil money, the civilian money that you didn't make while you was in the military. In the military, they don't pay you a lot, but they take care of your housing, your food and stuff like that, and your insurance. But then once you get out, you take care of that stuff yourself, but you make now civilian money, private money, which is like 2 times more. It just depends on how you roll it out and how you play it out. Personally, my friends who have been in the military, they're all successful. Doesn't mean everybody else is, of course not. But my friends who are in Gen Z, who has retired from the military, they're married, they have children, they have a house, they're good. They're better than good. They're really fucking good. He's a good dude, he's a smart dude, he played his cards right. Everybody does that. For different reasons. No judgment. Sometimes life is fucked up and it's unfair. That's where it is.
That's actually worried about a draft in war. I'm gonna let you know right now, there's about a 95% chance no draft happens. Like, first off, half of our paycheck if you live in the United States goes to the military. We spend $880 billion a year on the military, and Iran spends a whopping $10 billion. Their whole military operation would get wiped in like 2 nanoseconds if they actually tried to attack civilians. They would learn the true reason why we don't have free healthcare. The last thing they'd ever want to do is let all politicians put their political beliefs aside and let Congress come together and let Trump do whatever the he'd want to do in a war. It wouldn't matter if their allies got involved, which I don't think they would even do. They would have so much more to lose with Iran, like it wouldn't be worth it. Also, they wouldn't do it because I'm here. They know I don't play when I say leave us alone. Anyways, follow me on Twitter.
Listen, people can hate Trump all they want, but let me tell you this. I think China and Russia take the idea of Trump possibly going to war if they fuck up much more seriously than they do, I don't know, maybe Kamala or maybe Biden or Newsom or whoever comes up next. You could say I'm fooled or you disagree. Tell me why. But I think personally that Trump has shown multiple times that he won't hesitate to use the military if he thinks it's necessary. You don't give a fuck if you think it's necessary, if he thinks it's necessary and it is within his power. Fucking Obama bombed so many damn people during his 8 years. Drones, bombs, airstrikes, targeting terrorist leaders. I don't really give a shit when Trump does the same, as long as it doesn't escalate into a full-blown conflict, which at this point, it hasn't. So, that's all I gotta say. That's how I feel about it. At the end of the day, regardless of who the president is, whatever party, even the third independent party, which will be nice, it doesn't matter who it is. He's the president. They made decisions. I want him to make good decisions because that would make the better of this country. Whether or not I have faith in that is a different conversation, but I am hoping, I am wishing for the president to do good. When Trump does bad, I'm not saying yes, good him. Like, no, that's fucking stupid. You're a moron. If he does bad, then our country does bad. No matter how bad he does, he's still gonna be the president. Being upset and throwing temper tantrum doesn't change that. I want him to make good decisions, to have good outcomes and good results, so the world can be better, and most importantly, we can be better. Because I'm American, and I will die in America. That's the way it is. You may disagree with that, and that's cool. Tell me in the comments why. This is how I see the video. I agree with him for the most part, but certain things I disagree with. Of course, like, I have much more of a historical knowledge and military knowledge, so of course I'm bringing that stuff in, and that's probably why I disagree on a few things, but it is what it is. Overall, good video. I have the link to the original video in the description down below, so you can check it out, like, share, subscribe, and give him some support. I appreciate the content he puts out. Excuse me. And it's a lot of work to put out original content. I'm working on some stuff to do for the channel myself. I apologize for my long break, but soon we're going to get back into it just like normal, the way it used to be. More topics, more perspective, and hopefully I can bring in more history. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. It's your boy Logos, and I'll see you next time. Peace.